So you guys might remember in the last video there was snow everywhere and it was freezing cold. Well, as you can see, it's definitely warmed up a little bit, but it's time to wean our calves, and the problem that we were running into is this water trough out here. So I've got a water trough right out here from where we're weaning these calves, and they're not happy because we're weaning them, but I'm about 200 feet away from my shop, which has the closest power supply, because the water tanks up by the shop, I have tank heaters in them, and I don't have to worry about the tanks freezing up. Well, all the way out here, I don't have power, and I don't want to run, 200 feet of extension cord across the ground that an animal could step on and shock them or catch on fire or whatever. So I've been trying to come up with an idea to keep ice from freezing up in this water tank. Now, I thought about a solar powered tank heater. I'm assuming a tank heater pulls more power than what a small solar panel can keep up with, because I can't find any. But what I did find was a solar powered aerator for a small pond, so I'm hoping we can install that and it'll keep the water moving enough to where I don't have issues with it freezing. Now, as you can see, we don't really have freezing temperatures right now, so unfortunately I can't test how well that part's going to work. But I am going to go ahead and install it and turn it on and let it run. It's got 3 settings, the one that I found. It's got low, medium, and high. I'm going to turn it on high and let it run all night long and just see if it can keep up and run all throughout the night, because a lot of times here for us, it's only freezing at nighttime, and during the day the temperatures are warm enough we don't have an issue. So as long as it'll get me through the night, I think for the most part it's going to work. So we'll head up to the shop and I'll show you guys the little aerator that I got, and we'll get this thing installed. Alright, so here's our little package. We just got this off Amazon. It's a pretty simple little deal. It's just a small solar panel. It has a little bracket that we're just going to screw right to the top of the post. Now, I'm not a huge fan of this mounting bracket. It's super cheap plastic, so I'll be curious to see how long that lasts. And then it just plugs straight into, this is basically like an aquarium pump for a fish tank. And you just turn it on, and then you have a mode selector button, so you can turn it on to the high, medium, and low settings. You can see it's got 2 little air nozzles coming out of it. It gives you 3 of these little stones. It says to soak these in water for 24 hours, so I've already soaked these 2. I plan on just using 2, 1 on each end of the tank. It gives you these little T fittings with your air hose. That way, if you want to just run 1 line and tee it out to 2, you can do that, which is probably what I'm going to do. I might just block off one of these air fittings and just use 1. I want less of the tubing in there as possible, or as little as possible. So I'm going to probably just run 1 down into the tank and then tee it at the bottom to the 2 little stones. The one thing that I don't like is they give you a bracket to mount the solar panel, but it doesn't give you a bracket to mount the actual pump itself. You can see it looks like the bracket that clips onto the solar panel could clip onto here, so I guess if you wanted to mount that, I don't know, a different way you could, but I think for this, I think I've got some L-angle around here somewhere, so I think I'm just going to try to cut it to fit and see if it'll slide up into that slot. Then I can just screw that L-angle to the top of the post, and the part that sticks up, I can just slide this onto it behind the solar panel. So I'm going to see if I got a piece of L-angle, see if we can make up a little bracket and get it to fit in our pump. So all I've done, I took an old piece of aluminum L-angle and I measured that little slot in the back of that pump and just cut me a little sliver of L-angle about that width. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drill 2 holes right here on the bottom part, and I can screw that onto the top of the wooden post. Then I can take my little pump and just slide it on there like that, and then it'll hang. And I'm going to try to mount it basically right behind where the solar panel is going to sit. It said something about this thing isn't like completely waterproof, so don't let it get submerged in water, but it should be water resistant enough to where if I mount it like that onto the back of the post, it should be good to go. At least that's the hope anyway. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to drill just a couple holes right here. Like I said, we'll take it out. We'll screw it right onto the top of that post, hang it up, and hope for the best. So I'm just going to kind of dry fit these brackets up here just so I can kind of get an idea of where it's all going to fit. So I think mounting this solar panel up here is going to be the best. It's high enough up. We have Dexter cattle, so they're real short. I don't think they're going to reach. But I'm just going to kind of dry fit. If you guys get to shaking, one of the cows is about to start rubbing on you, so just a heads up. But yeah, just kind of dry fitting. I think it's going to work out really well. I'll have that pump kind of back here on the back of the post. Obviously this panel right here, and then I can run my lines down into the tank. But I'm going to run her off of you guys, and then we'll go ahead and get these mounted up. So we've got them mounted up, and you can see they send you a lot longer of a cord than what I'm going to need, because obviously I'm going to mount it right here together. So I just brought some little zip ties for now. I'm going to just keep this kind of wound up. I'm going to zip tie it right here to the base of the solar panel mount, just to try to keep everything up and out of the way. So these plugs just screws right into the solar panel outlet. So I'm going to plug it in, zip tie this out of the way, and then we'll connect our air lines. So just kind of eyeballing based on the length of tubing that they sent us, I think I'm going to have just enough to run it straight down from where the pump is mounted and then to the T, and run one to each stone, one on either side. It's going to be pretty close. If I do end up a little bit short, I do have some more of this tubing up in the shop from an actual aerator pump that I've got. But we're just going to plug this in on the bottom. I'll have to go up to the shop again. That extra fitting on the bottom of this pump that I mentioned capping off, I've got some vacuum hose caps that I can find one that'll fit on that really well. The other thing I'm probably going to do, this coated wire is electric for all the fence. Everything's hot, so I might grab a couple steeples and just kind of tack this air hose into some of these horizontal posts just to keep it off of the electric fence. I don't think it would do anything, but better safe than sorry. So I'm going to run this down. I'm just going to use a pair of scissors to cut this. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball it to about, I think about right there is where it needs to be. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball it, cut it. I'll slip the T on here, and what I may do, that T fitting might actually be pretty close to this side. So I may just cut like maybe a 2-inch piece of hose to run from the T fitting to one of those stones and have it on this side, and then just use the excess to run over there. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and cut it, and then I'll show you guys what it looks like in here. We'll turn it on and see how much there actual disturbance there is in the water. I don't know if this is going to work. I really hope it does, because this would be probably one of the cheapest options for water troughs that are far away from any power source. This might be one of the cheapest ways that I've found, if it works, to keep things from freezing. So I got the air hose running from the bottom of the pump down to that T. Now what I'm noticing, You can see that side over there is bubbling pretty good, and this side's not really doing anything. I'm going to assume that's due to the length of the hose. All that air might just be able to escape a lot faster through that shorter hose. So I'm going to take this longer hose, I'm going to cut it in half, and then I'll just spread those stones out as far as we can, and we'll see if it evenly bubbles. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. That I would think would be enough to keep water from freezing, at least in that small spot. Even if it doesn't keep the whole trough ice free, as long as it's in a big enough area to where they can still get a drink out of it, I think it'll work. But I'm going to cut that long one in half and see if having the same length of tubing on each side helps both of those bubble. So I use that longer piece and cut it in half, and as you can see, both of them are bubbling now. So if you're going to do this, you're going to need the same length of line going to each one to get them both to bubble. That air line is floating a lot, obviously, because it's full of water. So when I try to put one stone over here, it kind of pulls it over there. So I may just leave both of them on one side. Both of them being closer together might actually keep that half of the trough, at least that half, from freezing up. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of tidy up this little air hose real quick. And like I said, I'm going to leave it running all night. I'll check it in the morning and just see if the solar panel can keep up. This is the highest setting that it has. So we'll see if on the high setting, if it'll stay running all night. So here's what it looks like. I've got just a vacuum cap plug on that one, and then obviously the air hose running down. I just put a steeple on the first and third boards to kind of hold it in place. Now, one thing I do want to note, plugging off that other air port with a vacuum cap, I didn't notice it actually pushing any more air towards these stones, but I'm hoping that will be enough disturbance in the water to where it'll keep it from freezing, at least on that end, an area large enough to where they can still get a drink if they need it. And like I mentioned earlier, it's not cold enough right now for me to really know how well this is going to work, but I can at least test and see if it'll run all throughout the night on high. I do have it on the highest setting, which isn't quite as much as what I had hoped for. I thought for that being a pond aerator that it would have put out a little bit more air, but I think it might be enough disturbance in that small of a water trough to keep it from freezing, at least in that small area. So I'm going to leave it running all night on high. We'll come back out in the morning and check it and see if it can at least stay running throughout the night. But yeah, we don't have freezing temperatures, at least in the forecast for the next 10 days. I do expect some more freezing temperatures before the winter is over. So hopefully I'll have an update here in a month or two. Most of this work is for her. She's not very happy right now, but it'll be good. The mama needs to get the baby off of her to start weaning and, you know, the processes of life. But we will meet you guys back out here in the morning and we'll see if that's still bubbling and if it's still bubbling at the same rate that it is right now. So we'll see you guys in the morning. Good morning. So we are back out here at the water trough, and I've got good news and I've got bad news. So the good news, I don't know if you can hear it or not, the pump is still running. So it did run all night. However, there's not really any bubbles coming out. So yeah, the pump is still running. It sounds and it feels like it's still pumping about as hard as it was yesterday, but obviously we don't have any bubbles. Now, one thing I do want to mention, that solar panel I only had hung up for maybe half of that day that I installed it. So I know, like, the solar panel on the charger for our electric fence, the instructions on it said to leave that solar panel in the sun for like 3 days before you start it. So maybe the instructions for this one didn't say anything. And when I plugged it into the pump, I'm assuming it's the battery indicator on the pump was showing a full charge, but I don't know. It only got down to 32 degrees last night. I left one of the water troughs up by the shop with no heater in it, nothing running, just to see. Nothing froze last night. It wasn't cold enough. So I'll be curious to see in the long run, you know, if this potential solution is going to work or not. I'd like to hear from you guys. Do you think this is going to work, or am I going to have to get a better setup with a stronger pump and maybe a bigger solar panel? Because like I said, it is still running. It sounds like it's running just as strong as it was, but it obviously doesn't look like it. So I don't know. We'll keep an eye on it, kind of see how things work, and then like I mentioned, if it does work, I'll make an updated video whenever we get a freeze again and let you guys know. But that is where we're at the moment. Now I think what I'm going to do is we're going to walk down. I'm going to show you guys this little pond. You all right, buddy? I'm going to show you guys this little pond we've got down here and what one of our next projects is going to be. So as you can see down here in the edge of the woods, we've got this little pond right here. Now you can see there's a bunch of dead trees laying down. There was a huge red oak tree right here. I've already cleared all that out. But there's just a lot of debris down here. You can see all these little limbs and everything just laying on the ground. But I kind of want to clean up everything around the pond. Just kind of open it up a little bit. Now it's a very small pond here. We'll walk down there and I'll show you. But this big dead tree, I think, is going to be the next thing I try to get out. There's a small little, I think it was a cedar tree of some sort up here. I want to try to get all this brushy stuff cleared out first, because this is a pretty steep hill. You may not be able to tell on camera, but I don't want to be standing down here on the downhill side of it when I cut it. I'd rather be up there. There's so many limbs up there, I don't expect it to start rolling downhill when I cut it, but I would still rather be on the uphill side. So we'll walk right down in here. So you can see, it's just a really small little man-made pond. There's a bunch of tree limbs and stuff that have fell down in here. I just want to kind of get it cleaned up. You can see there, we still got a little bit of ice left over from that last storm that hit us. But I want to clean all this up. This pond ain't very deep. I'm going to guess it's only like 3 or 4 feet deep at the deepest spot. I think the previous owners built it just for like animals and stuff to drink out of. There's no fish or anything in it. I don't know that it's even big enough for that. I would like to get it dug out at some point and make it big enough for at least bluegill for like the kids and stuff. But I think this right here is going to be my next project, just kind of cleaning everything up. There's just a lot of debris and stuff that have blown down. You can see all these trees that have fallen down over here on the top side of the dam. I think most of this is going to be my next project that I really take on, is try to get all this stuff cleaned up. The animals like coming down here in the summer. It's a nice, cool, shaded spot. The cows walk through the water all the time. The horses don't really do that, but I'd like to kind of get all this cleaned up for them and just make it a little bit nicer up in here. Yeah, this little pond cleanup project, it might be a couple different videos. There's quite a bit of work, but the problem with some of this stuff, so you can see there's trees all over the back side of where all these downed limbs are. I don't want to take out any healthy trees or trees that are still alive, which in turn is going to make it harder to get the tractor and stuff down in here to it to get these out. So it's going to take me a little bit longer to get some of this stuff out, just because some of these pieces I may have to cut up and just kind of drag out by hand until I can get the tractor close enough to wrap a chain or a strap or something around them and get them pulled out. But I don't want to take out trees if I don't need to. The biggest dead tree that's up here, I can get the tractor close enough to where I think I can get at least a chain around it and potentially drag it out. This is a very steep hill down here, so my thoughts are to leave a lot of these limbs in as big of pieces as I can get away with, and at least drag them up the hill to where I can get to a flatter spot, and then I'll cut it up. I'll split whatever I can get out of this for firewood, but some of it's pretty rotten. So like I mentioned, I'll show you guys in that video I've got a huge stump. I mean, this stump was probably 4 feet wide at the base. And we've just been throwing all of our junk rotten wood in that stump and trying to burn it out. So I think that's what we'll do. But I appreciate you guys hanging out with us again. I'd love to hear what you guys think of that little aerator setup. I really hope it works. I'm going to let that, since like I said, we don't have freezing temperatures in the next at least 10 days. So I think I'm going to turn that pump off, let the solar panel charge for a few days, and then I'll turn it back on again at a later point and see if it can run all night. If I know for sure that it's fully charged, may work, may not. I'm hoping for the best. We don't get super cold temperatures, so for any of you that live like up north where it gets freezing cold for weeks on end, I don't know that that would work. But for us, to where it's typically not too terrible for long periods of time, I'm hoping it works. But either way, I appreciate you guys hanging out with us, and we'll see you guys on the next one.